Good morning, and thank you for joining us for Operational Excellence Week Canada. My name is Nicole Bamford, and I'm the moderator for today's session. On behalf of Leslie, Angelique, Grant, Quinn, Candace, and I, we thank you for joining us for day one of the event. This presentation, Building Resilience, Operational Excellence, and Transformation in a Time of Change, will be given by Sharif Baraski, Director, Business Process Improvement at Loblaws, Elizabeth Dare, Director, Strategic Business Improvement at Johnson & Johnson, Abhinav Suri, Head of Wealth Process Excellence at TD, Betty Parson, Vice President, NAM Lean Office at Schneider Electric, and your panel moderator will be Nathalie Pougno, Senior Director of IT and Transformation at Ricoh Canada. This panel will be worth a listen, pardon me. Before we get started, here are some quick administrative points. During the webinar, if you have questions for the presenters, please submit them in the Q&A box on your screen, and these will be answered during the question portion of the webinar. Likewise, for any technical issues, please write them into the Q&A section and we'll get to them right away. The widgets on your screen can be resized and dragged around for your viewing preferences. We encourage you to visit the Resource Center on your screen for additional content and resources we and our sponsors have provided for you. So make sure you're sitting comfortably, and I'll now hand it over to Nathalie so we can begin.
Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to our panel. And as we all know, we do live in unprecedented times, and we all are changing the way we define operational excellence. And I wanted to start with you, Elizabeth, if you could share a few thoughts around what has changed for you in your role.
Sure. Thank you, Nathalie. So I think for me, operational excellence is really the same principles, but much more obviously virtual, because most of the folks I work with are virtual. So it's really required a lot more communication to run operational programs, a lot more making sure the project management rigor is there, agendas, minutes, and so forth. Using all the tools that I have, like Skype and Teams and so forth, the virtual tools, maximizing the use of those, because again, I can't see people face to face. And I think in some cases, patience, because things don't always go as planned, and things don't go as fast as maybe they would if you had face-to-face workshops. Virtual takes a little longer, but it's definitely possible to get projects done, and to do the operational excellence and the Lean Sigma projects, it just might take a little longer.
Thank you. Sharif, how about you? What has changed on your end?
So I think a lot of the points that Elizabeth just mentioned, but I think as a company, like operational excellence, like it was around our execution and strategy, right? So being a Loblaws, being the biggest retailer in Canada, like I think we faced a lot of challenges in terms of like the grocery demand and everything like that. So we had to make like a 360, whatever we had in terms of a 3-year plan. We had to quickly focus on what was in the store and customer. So what do we do in terms of safety? What do we do in terms of creating the flow in the stores? And then also, like, how do we meet the demand? So we had different channels for getting the product to the store, whether it's them coming into the store, whether it's the pickup that they do, or even the delivery. So for us, it was really about the customer, and that while everything else is shut down, we're in a place where like people need their food and everything like that. So how do we make it most convenient and everything? So for us, it was really it was a lot about agility and being flexible, so that whatever 3-year plans we had, or the plans that we had for the year, everything had to be readjusted, and we had to become really agile in the way we do things and stuff like that. Some of these cumbersome processes, for example, a new vendor or something like that, it would take 12 months to be in our system and stuff. And because of supply and demand and everything, we were able to turn it around in 24 hours and stuff like that. So I think a lot of focus on like agility and going virtual and everything like that, and figuring it out that. So I think a lot of new things, and the biggest theme was just agility and flexibility to make our customer happy and keep our colleagues safe.
Thank you. Very, very good feedback. Thanks, Sharif. Abhinav, how about you? What has changed in your definition of operational excellence?
So from my perspective, we have seen, I would say all the things that Elizabeth and Sharif have shared, we have experienced the same, but there have been a couple of more changes, I would say, that we had to make in how we execute our initiatives. The first thing is, with everyone being virtual, I mean, there was a period, I would say, when the COVID began, there was hesitance about people, how they will execute, how they will work. Because if you know, for operational excellence, one of the things that we have to do is conduct workshops initially, conduct workshops with the process owner. And it became a little difficult because not only from my team who were comfortable doing it virtually, but from the audience perspective, they felt this little disengaging. So we had to reinvent how we actually operate them. It's not that we have totally changed everything, but we have also added some virtual tools, which is helping us to execute with the same speed that we were doing in person. So that was one thing where team did an amazing job. They actually created some of the online tools which will support all the workshops, and we are able to make the audience comfortable. We have to do a little bit more prep by sending them pre-reads, helping them during the virtual workshops. So that was one thing. The second was suddenly we saw there was a huge demand for some of the services which were digital. Like I can take an example of direct investing, which is one of our big business. Because of the volatility in the market, we saw one of the highest trading volumes, which meant there was a huge pressure on the back office to support that. So we realized that we have to quickly build solutions which are scalable, which will make the operation scalable. So there were a lot of things which were done in the interim to, get the ball rolling, but at the same time we started heavily on how can we automate some of the work which is coming through. And the good thing about the whole COVID situation, I always tell this, this has actually shown us, how can we be so agile when the same discussion 1 year back would have cost us, can we do this in 3 months? And now suddenly the expectation was that, can we do it in 1 week? Can you do it in a couple of days? And the whole organization came together to ensure that we are not adding risk. At the same time, we are delivering with the same quality. So I think that, which is a big thing we have to learn. Once we go back to normal, people are still working the way they were working early in the year. Few things that we should not miss is the learning coming out of this environment.
Those are very, very good and important points. Thank you so much. It's exceptional. So, Betty, if I go back to you and considering where we've been and what we all experienced and found for ourselves in terms of resilience and operational excellence, what would be the top 2-3 things that you would like to share with the audience and maybe leave us with some good feedback that comes to your mind?
So I think from my perspective, to get programs and projects done quickly to the point of being agile and so forth, it's really critical around the active facilitation, actively managing the team, making sure that the communications are getting through, that you're communicating the right information. I think that's critical for me, the active team management and the active communications, and really making sure that rigor is there.
Thank you. Absolutely. And Sharif, from your perspective, what are the top 2-3 things that again stood out for you in the last half year?
Yeah, I think what we learned was we need to be really adaptable, and I think, like I mentioned earlier, and that has been really a key to how we have transformed some of the projects in the new environment, and then also the need for the accelerated digital transformation. Our online orders and stuff like that would have our 3-year roadmap, that's been now in just a few month roadmap and stuff like that. Really getting to know our customer better, and if we have a shortage in one product, I think we have to become really good at forecasting, okay, what are some of the halo and cannibalization? What else would the customer buy if, let's say, for example, they can't find this one brand and stuff like that. And in terms of our colleagues and stuff, really over-communicating, two-way communication, it was very difficult and challenging in the beginning to the lack of in-person communications and stuff like that. So really having over communicating where possible and things like that, just to make sure everyone is still up to speed and expectations are still clear, and also to hear them out.
That's great. And I think those are absolutely exceptional points. Abhinav, how about you? Is there anything that you want to share with the audience in terms of, again, 2-3 key points that stood out for you in your role?
So from my perspective, I would say there are three things which have become essential for us. And as we are going through this environment, we have realized that there's even a greater need to think on three aspects. One is how do we go faster on innovative automation? Like with all the agility that we expect from the business, it is important that we are also able to scale up and down quickly. So it is important that we invest in innovative automation and start, going deeper into it. We have been involved in delivering this, but the need and the demand for this has increased, I would say, 5-fold or 10-fold in last 6 months. So which basically is a responsibility on us to say, how can we execute more with the same resources? So that is one. Second is there is also a need to think about how can we build low-code end-to-end automation and orchestration. Like we think about there are roadmaps, multi-year roadmaps, which will deliver strategic solution. However, there is an essential need at this point to build low-cost, low-code solution quickly, which can still give you the efficiency and the outcome that you expect. So that end-to-end orchestration becomes a key for us to think through what are the technological advancements which are happening in this area where we can leverage, we can be the first innovators to join in and think about how do we implement at a low cost. The third and the most important thing is be involved in innovation. Like this is the best time when you are able to bring your ideas forward, which can be really great, and you are able to show the value. Like sometimes we start thinking that this is an exceptional time, but exceptional times also involve some of the great ideas. So going deeper into innovation is always critical. If we rely on how we were working 6 months back, we will continue to get the same results, but the demand is totally different at this point. So innovation becomes a key here.
Thank you. This is exceptional feedback and very, very useful. Thank you for that. I do have a question from audience that is coming to Sharif, and Sharif, maybe we'll start with you and we'll see if other panelists would like to comment on that. But Sharif, starting with you, how did you manage client demand versus employee safety? It's super important nowadays. So what did you guys do?
So I think it was like in the beginning, it was very new to everyone. It was really following like the guidelines of the government and everything like that. I think when it came to convenience and stuff, like a lot of like the demand for the express pickup or the deliveries to home, like that was created. So a lot of the they really increased the volume for that. But at the same time, like for the colleagues, like the plexiglasses were installed. Like I think the communication and the boards were put up there for like the 6 feet, like the social distancing, the way the store's layout were done so that it's a one-way flow throughout the entire store. And also like and they were put at like the 6 feet distance with each other, and then one person to like coordinate which cashier everyone goes to. And then also using every other cashier so that there's nothing come from the back. So I think a lot of procedures like that were put in place. And then as the masks became more, as we learned more about the masks and the importance of that, the colleagues were provided with the masks, and then the mask became mandatory in the stores like that. So as we learned a lot about this COVID, it was in the beginning was new to everyone. We just kept implementing those changes and everything like that.
That's great. Thank you. Abhinav, anything that you want to add on that subject?
No, I think for TD, I mean, the colleague safety or employee safety is the most important aspect. Like I can speak for the organization that I work for, that they are exceptional when it comes to taking care of their own colleagues. Like it was from the beginning, they were very vocal and open about like ensuring the safety of the employees is very important, and it's the most important thing. But when we talk about safety, at the same time, we were also talking about the wellness. Like it is not only because as people were working virtually and from home, they had dual responsibilities of ensuring that they are able to take care of their children and maybe elderly, and if they have any other personal commitment. And at the same time, they were also supporting the work. So we were very flexible about that, ensuring that they get all the right, I would say, support to make sure that they are feeling comfortable. However, at the same time, there were a lot of expectation on the banks to say they have a role to play. Like I can take a very good example where there was expectation that now you are able to defer your mortgage. But to support all those volumes becomes so critical. And that's why I was talking about innovative automation, because the teams were able to quickly came out with solutions and build those solutions quickly, which were able to support this. And sometimes it looks a little simpler from the outer, but when you go inside, it's a mammoth work which has gone in. And like I would say that was one of the great thing which was done by the team in a couple of days, like something which would have taken easily a couple of months or even more. And that's why I'm saying, like, when you have to think about the solution, you have to take care of your colleagues, you have to still take care of the client, and you have to maintain this. And that's why building the innovative solutions is the key here.
No, that is great, and it's such a good feedback. Elizabeth, is there anything that you want to share from your perspective around that very subject?
Yeah, I think the only thing is just making sure that, again, things are moving so fast to get the right inputs from like a legal privacy perspective into certain programs is really critical. So you have that feedback ahead of time versus finding out later that maybe things should have been done a bit differently. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. And Abhinav, going back to you, there is a question here from the audience, and I think it's a very interesting one, and we all had to deal with it in those unprecedented times more than once, is did you have any resistance from your staff? And if you did, what did you do about it? How did you overcome that?
So when I say resistance, I mean, there are things which people are a little uncomfortable about. I mean, definitely there is no one who is saying that we don't want to do work, but at the same time, we are taking very, I would say, human approach towards understanding how everyone is feeling. Right? I mean, sometimes it is not only about people are not comfortable or they are not supportive. The thing that we need to understand is there is a situation which is happening at the back of it. So understanding that context is critical. So when we talk about now my team, there were a few things which we did, which was like changing and becoming more informal in our approach. Because essentially, when you're in banks, you would have seen like it's more formal, and now you're working remotely from home. So it became kind of informal, and we have to adapt to that. And that also mean that we were having more interaction with different teams on a more informal level. Because essentially, it was not only about getting the work done; it is also about making people comfortable, making them aware that there is a support from the team. So I would say sometimes, I mean, if you have to go fast in these situations, you should be going slow initially to make sure that everyone is onboarded. And if there are resistance, you need to understand what is the context behind that resistance. I mean, it's a typical change management situation where you need to understand what is the audience going through and why. Like I can take a good example of someone on my team had two babies. One was 3-year-old, other one was 2-year-old, and they had to take care of them. And like there were days when she will ping me and say, "I'm just going to shut down my laptop because it's little madness at my home." So sometimes you understand that and you are supportive, right? The work will continue, but even if half a day is lost, it doesn't mean anything. The same person will come back tomorrow feeling motivated, coming back, saying that their family is taken care. So you need to sometimes take those decisions where it might impact the work, but you are able to then overcome that maybe on the second day or in few days. So I think that helps, and I would say from my perspective, I feel comfortable about how team is executing, the way they have been able to come up with new ideas to deliver. At the same time, there is a flexibility provided to them to say, okay, whatever your commitments are, take care of them. We can be flexible in our hours of work. We can be flexible in sometimes if you have to take more days off because you have a situation. So I think those things really helped.
That is awesome. And, compassion and, as you said, ability to be flexible, those are all great attributes of a great leader, specifically in those trying times. So thank you. That's great. Sharif, is there anything that you had to deal with along the same matters?
No, I think he touched on all the key points, right? Like, I think it's about being flexible with our colleagues when needed, like, especially when they have kids and stuff like that at home, and they become more motivated. I agreed on that point. And if there was resistance, really understanding just like any other issue before even this environment, really understanding like what is the change or what is it that they're reacting to, understand the change management aspect of it, and react to it accordingly. So, but I think you mentioned all the 2 points.
Thank you. Elizabeth, is there anything that you want to add from your perspective, something that you had to deal with?
Sure. So I think I had to deal with some resistance on some strategic projects I was working on a few months ago. And I think it was, the strategy was set by leadership, what we needed to do and so forth. And it was really to the point, understanding, calling it's team management. Like I said earlier, it's really calling the people, the person that I was having some challenges with aside, having a discussion, trying to understand their viewpoint, where they were coming from, because they were quite passionate, and trying to channel that in the right way, so that we could meet the strategic objectives set by the senior leadership. So it was really having that conversation. People are people. We're all going through this together, and making sure that we had that discussion, and it ended up great. I mean, it worked out. I'm making sure that I took the time to do that.
This is great. And maybe just to follow up on that, how, again, just being all virtual and, having stress around everything that we do, how you as a leader manage to keep your team connected, energized, keep the morals up. So what did you do, Elizabeth, on your end?
I think from my perspective, it's setting out like a clear strategy, clear vision, using Skype and instant messaging and so forth, like maximally using that to touch base with people to keep the interactions going, and really just driving things forward. I mean, the communications, like I said before, are critical and have been critical. Working with the team. So it's not like a magic bullet. I mean, this is just what you need to do, right? You really need to up the communications, up you can't do the FaceTime, so you have to do the virtual tools, and really make sure that for me, that works well, to drive things forward and get things done quickly. It's just upping what I always did, but do it even the next level up.
Thank you. And, you are so right. There is no way that we over-communicate in those trying times. Sharif, was there anything else that you did differently, or anything that you put emphasis on, again, making sure your team is supported and the moral is up?
Yeah. I think to begin with, in the very beginning days, I think it was really okay, how do we do this? Starting with daily huddles and stuff, and just encouraging people to go more on camera and just to have that contact a little bit. As a team, as a broader team, I think there were a lot more, we started doing lunch together, eat-togethers and stuff like that, which we would do generally in office, but now we try to do it. And then not every single meeting was about work, but we try to do that other part to it as well. We still try to celebrate birthdays and stuff, create cards and stuff like that. And I think on a bit of the other note, as a company, our company did open a mental health line and stuff like that if people need to talk to someone. So there's a 24-hour line and that. And then I'll also give credit to our COE team. Actually, the COE leader is in attendance right now. They really created all these virtual programs for our team and all the other teams to create. So going virtual with yellow belt, green belt, black belt, and then also any other agility training, agile training, and they're bringing that live and then putting all the activities that we would have in person. They're really working with different other industry leaders to how do you make those online and fun, but also learning tools. So I think those are just some of the things that we try to do.
No, and you know what? It is so important to remain personal, right? And have those deep connections. So that's excellent. We'll go to some of the questions that came in our Q&A chat. And I wanted maybe to go back to Abhinav and just to see if you want to add a few points on the subject that we discussed. And I have a couple of questions that are geared towards you around RPA and things that you've done on the technology side. But I think it would be very important for us maybe to look into employees and see if you want to share a few points on that end as well.
Yeah, so I think Webber have asked something around, okay, yeah. So for innovative automation, we internally, yeah, it's RPA, robotic process automation, and internally in TD, we say this is innovative automation. So definitely RPA is a part of it, but essentially at the same time, we are also looking at other innovative solution around, as I was telling you, low-code orchestration tools, which can basically help us build end-to-end solution quickly, which will help in straight-through processing. At the same time, we are also looking at how can we leverage data analysis to complement with RPA, right? So those 2 or 3 things, and there are other things that we are also trying to do in the early stages, which basically talks about how can we leverage all the components to think about it, efficiency end-to-end. So it is not only about automating a particular activity in the process, it is also about looking at the whole end-to-end process, looking at the digital input, looking at end-to-end orchestration of workflow, data analysis, and processing through RPA.
This is great, and with all of this automation and great innovation that was going on, so how did you keep connected to your team, Abhinav? How did you keep their morals up?
So I think Sharif connected on some of these points. Like one thing was like we use our webcam a lot. So like it's kind of initially it was an unsaid rule, but now we have said like make sure your camera is on as if you're okay to on the camera. Like, but essentially that really changes a lot of engagement when you are looking at someone instead of talking to a black screen. It changes the perspective. That makes you more, I think it's less tiring on your eyes when you're looking at someone instead of a black screen. The other thing which we did, like as I was telling earlier, it is important during this time to ensure that we are connected informally. So we added this fun Friday meeting end of the day where as a team we will connect. And this was a big group where we play some games, have a drink, talk about some of the stuff which is not about work. And this became so critical because initially we were not sure how this will run, but essentially this has become part of our weekly connect end of the week ritual, which definitely we are going to continue even after the COVID is over. So I think some of these small things really make a big difference. When you are having your one-on-one meetings with your direct reports, we spend more time talking about how things are at home, how is things happening in your life, is everything fine, how are your children doing? Like, I know we do this regularly, but essentially now this is as a leader, it is important that you consciously make an effort to be connected. Spend maybe 15 minutes instead of just a couple of minutes. Spend 15 minutes, 10 minutes sometimes when you know someone is going through a tough time. I mean, some of these discussions are the things which really give them more support. So these small things really make a big difference. I always tell this, like we can make big plans, we can make all the project plans, but if the people are not fully motivated, I mean, they can't be executed. So it is important that everyone who's on the project, who's working, they should be in a good mental place. And it is important for the mental wellness. Like TD has taken exceptional measures where they have given wellness trainings, they have wellness support, people who are going through tough time, there are policies which have been stood up to ensure that they get the support. And to complement them, there are on the team support that we provide, which I would say has been working fine for us.
This is wonderful. No, there isn't really a way to overestimate the importance of having deep and very personal relationships with the employees. I agree totally. And, talking about us as leaders and making sure we have time to motivate our teams and we're running in a very different environment and trying to be as efficient as we can. What about yourselves? How did you manage your work-life balance? And that's a great question that came from the audience. So Elizabeth, how about we start with you? So can you share a few insights on that subject?
Honestly, not so well in the beginning. I think it was very easy to channel some of, while everything was going on, to just work and just kind of do that more than maybe I should have. I think my company's been very supportive around that. And, I've been really trying to basically, work in my office, try not to work a lot of other places so I can shut the door and be done for the day. Doesn't always work that way, but and really trying to have work have its place and have other things that are set up to do. Hard when there's not so much going on externally, but really trying to work on that to make sure that I do that and do the same for my folks that work with me. So in the beginning, it was difficult to get used to an all virtual environment, but I've gotten better at it.
Thank you. No, that is a terrific and very honest answer. Thank you for that. Sharif, how about you?
I mean, one of the perks of working from home, like there was a lot more time now, right, in the day, like for work that you commute and everything like that, right? So I think, like Elizabeth mentioned, like there were sometimes like you don't know when to turn it off, like even on your phone and thing, like it's your office is just right there, and like you hear that thing, like okay, let me just check that email one more time, what's going on there and stuff like that. But I also saw like value in being at home because I had like a 2-year-old daughter and stuff like that. In my lunch break, if I didn't have like something else, like I can put her in a nap, I can spend more time with her and get work done and things like that. So yes, in the first few weeks and stuff like that, it was very challenging. But then I saw the value in it and sort of became adaptable like that. And similar with my team.
No, this is exceptional. Thank you. And I agree. Having this flexibility, it helps us as well. Abhinav, what about you?
So I think work-life balance, like irrespective whether you're in virtual place or you're in person, I mean, it's more driven by an individual commitment to it, right? I mean, and virtually it becomes a little difficult because, as Sharif was saying, your office is in front of you, you spend a little bit more time. And then for me, like I had to consciously make an effort to ensure that I am switching off my laptop after the office hours so that people don't see me online, because this become a kind of like if your leader is online, you start looking at them and saying, oh, they are working. Like you want to make sure that people keep a good balance. And at the same time, there was flexibility. Like I prefer early mornings to start really early, but at the same time, I have communicated it to the team. It doesn't mean that you have to reply whenever I send you an email, right? It is my balance, the way I have created my balance. Because I'm an early riser, I get more time in the morning. I'm going to, you will see some emails coming from me really early. So don't rush to, answering them. Take your time, and when you are comfortable and as per your working hours, just respond to those. So I think some of these small things, because you need to have flexibility. People who have some commitment during the day because they have to either go and pick up their children in the evening, so they are not comfortable with having those meetings later in the evening. So you have to be flexible with that, but at the same time, you need to ensure that you give them sufficient flexibility to build their working hour and have some common hours where if they have to collaborate and they have to work with everyone else, they have a good chunk of their daily time where they can collaborate, and then they can always be more flexible with their work hours.
Thank you. And with a couple of minutes that we have left, Abhinav, maybe a last question to you and the rest of our wonderful attendees. What do you think would be the great outcomes out of COVID that will continue post-COVID? Because we talk a lot about challenges and, how we see things being done differently, but there will be some great and positive developments out of it that we would assume will continue post-COVID. So maybe just a couple of words, Abhinav, from yourself, and then we'll go to the rest of the attendees.
So I would say if I look at COVID, there are two things which I feel will really help us. One is it will really, really propel innovation. Essentially, when I talk about innovation, I talk about it in two senses. One is there is an expectation to do more, but at the same time, there is an expectation to cost less, which basically leads to a lot more innovation. Like that is the best breeding ground for thinking out of the box, thinking about what are the things that we can do differently, which I feel is a positive, because when you go into that mindset where you have to deliver and you are constrained, you start thinking and, you start stretching your mind and saying, we still have to do it. It might become a little frustrating at some point, but essentially think about it. Like no one wants you to fail, but they want you to stretch and deliver outcomes where you are able to say, yeah, we deliver as per the constraint, but we have never compromised on risk, on quality, on delivery timelines, and we are able to, stand tall behind it. So I think COVID, if anything else, it will lead to a lot more innovation.
Perfect. No, wonderful. I absolutely agree. Sharif, how about you?
I agree with Abby. Like, I think it'll really accelerate the innovation. I think the things that we would continue to in mind, like, I think for us, it's really, we understand our customer really well and what do they need and like what are their demands and stuff like that. And maybe what are some of the tools or the processes we need to continue to make more adaptable to kind of meet that. And the second one is like our colleagues, right? Like, I think even if 100% the office is open again, like, I think it will continue, like, it will never be just 100% the office, like, be a work-life balance that we have learned to like everything is still getting done. I think colleagues are producing more and stuff like that. How do we better provide that work-life balance even as we go back to the offices?
I agree. Thank you. Elizabeth, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. I think the only thing is just working from anywhere that we know we can. Work from home and really work from everywhere. So I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for folks moving forward. I really don't think we'll go back to everybody working in an office. I think this will remain because to the point made by Sharif, people are productive, it's working. So I think at some point this will remain and we'll have this more of a hybrid working versus office working and so forth that we used to do before.
That is wonderful. Thank you. That was an exceptional feedback and a lot of great thoughts shared. And again, being at Ricoh and where we've been, I couldn't agree more on innovation, customer focus, and really being more agile and flexible than ever. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sharif, Elizabeth, Abhinav, and Nathalie for great, interesting, and informative panel discussion. For those in the audience, if you want to listen again, this webinar will be available on demand shortly. Finally, thank you to wherever you are for taking the time to listen in. We look forward to having you on the next session starting in just a few moments. Thanks again to all the panelists.